Baby, we made it. Welcome in, everybody. Tone and I match today. How about that? Sports Take, hanging out with you. Tone DeShields, Rob Ellis. What's up, Mr. Tone? How you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. I can't complain. Great minds tend to think alike. So it's Friday, Freaky Friday. Let's have some fun today, you guys. I'm definitely looking forward to this weekend. You know how you the closer you get to the weekend, it seems like you're oh man, look at that. See, the closer you get to the weekend, the more people call you.
Shut your phone off, Barrett Brooks.
Exactly, right. So yeah, the closer you get to the weekend, it just seems like you're searching for that extra reserve, right? You know, you're trying to find your second win.
I got you, man. I got you. It's like you get there. You know, it was always that way. Like when you were a kid, you couldn't wait for the weekend to come. You'd be done school, whatever, and you could do your thing. And by the time Friday night rolled around, you were so exhausted, like you'd pass out and fall asleep. And you're like, man, I didn't have to get up early tomorrow. I could have stayed up late, blah, 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 blah. And then boom.
That's for real. I woke up this morning and I'm sitting on this, you know, you're sitting on the edge of the bed like, it's Friday.
Trying to get your motivation.
It's Friday. Get your ass up. It's Friday. Let's do it. So we're here. Let's have some fun, you guys.
Here we are. Yeah. And what's up, everybody? What's up, Teresa? What's up? I am awake, flexing and stepping. James William, Chuck, Mo, Bry Guy. What's up? Appreciate the kind words, Bry Guy. It was fun last night on WIP. What is up, Kevin? What is up, South Jersey? D. William. Sean, Father Sean checking in. I haven't heard from Father Sean in a minute. What's up, Father Sean? What's up, Kyle? What is up, Jason? I think I got everybody. William, what's going on? Hope everybody's doing well. Enjoy your Friday, folks. We got a great guests lined up for you today. So 12 o'clock, Derek Bodner from PHLY All City is going to be joining us. I don't think anybody covers the Sixers better than Derek and has great insight. So we'll talk to him about everything that went on last night and yesterday with the trade deadline, which we'll get to in a second ourselves. But he's going to join us at 12:30. Jim Salisbury, who covered the Phillies for the Philadelphia Inquirer and Comcast Sportsnet / NBC Sports Philadelphia for a very long time. We will get Jim's thoughts on what's happening with the Phils as they get closer to the season. We got tons of Eagles. We got tons of Super Bowl stuff for you. We're going to break this bad boy down, in depth like we do Eagles games. Plenty of awards handed out last night from the NFL and a lot of other stuff happening around the league. So, man, we do have a lot to do on this Friday. I want to start with this, Tone. So Britton Covey was on Chase Senior's podcast last night. Britton Covey, the Eagles punt returner, special teams guy. Chase Senior is an analyst for he's a host of the 49ers Report and Eagles Now. He's also an NFL NBA host. He's a Temple guy, Chase is, but he had Britton Covey on his podcast yesterday. I thought it was very interesting, Tone, what Britton Covey had to say. So I'll just kind of give you the gist of it. So Chase asked him what went wrong last year. Give me your assessment of what went wrong. And he said, quote, "I definitely think we got emotionally tired trying to figure out what the problem was. There was some miscommunication from the coaches to the players. There was some pointing fingers from player to player, and there was letting outside voices impact our love for the game and the happiness that we had. That all combined to make us spiral." Okay, so all right, two things. And before we get into exactly what he said, my first thought has got to be, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie in the Eagles front office, like, Britton, my man, we love you. You had a great year last year for us. We'd like to have you back. But
don't screw it up.
You may not want to be the guy who's putting this kind of stuff out there publicly. Just saying. All right. Anyway, that's just an aside. But let's dig into some of that, Tone. And it goes along the lines of, I'm not breaking news here, but my stance the whole time has been this team was horrifically coached last year on every level, starting at the top, starting with the big man, Nick Sirianni, and filtering down to the two coordinators. And I'm going to get a little bit more into this with Lane Johnson and what he had to say to Dan Patrick. But let's just start with what Covey said, okay? So essentially, emotionally tired, trying to figure out what the problem was, miscommunication from the coaches to the players, finger pointing among the players, outside voices creeping in, etc.
I love the way you laid that out just now. All those things that you just listed, to me, sounds like a situation where the coach lost control of his locker room. And that's why, we spoke about this offline. That's why when I hear people say, nah, I don't think he lost a locker room. I don't think that. It's nah. This coach, this guy, made it to the playoffs 3 years in a row. He's shown an ability to lead this team, all that kind of stuff. And my thing is, we've seen smoke and mirrors before.
Mhm.
We've seen people who portray themselves to be one thing, but come to find out they're a whole nother thing. My point is, Nick Sirianni lost that locker room last year. I don't know why some people are well, I do know why some people are afraid to say it, but that's all right. The fact of the matter is that team was not responding to the coaching. And I think we talked about this offline as well. After that Niners game, it kind of seemed like they had a hard time getting back on the rails.
That was a knockout punch.
That was a knockout punch, and the rest of the season was just the 10 count. 1, 2. We were trying to find our way. 3, 4, 5, and next thing you know, that Buccaneers game was the 10 count, and we were done.
Yep,
we were done. So, look, Brandon Covey isn't saying anything that I necessarily didn't already feel already. But again, you made a good point earlier. Brandon Covey probably shouldn't be the one to say this, but at the same time, it's the truth of the matter. This is the second time Brandon Covey's kind of been in the news this offseason. And, for a guy that's a punt returner who's very expendable, he's doing a lot of talking.
Yeah. If I'm his agent, I would just advise him from here on out. And it's not to say what he said wasn't the truth. It was. But I would just say to him, for career longevity,
and look, he's a good guy. I want to make that very clear. Yeah. He's a good guy. He's not a controversial guy.
He spoke the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't lying.
But Rob, you know this better than me.
Yeah.
The truth doesn't get you but so far.
Doesn't always set you free.
The truth doesn't always set you. No, and actually, the truth can set you free. It can set you free into the unemployment line. So you're right. The truth can.
You're right. It can set you very free. You can have a lot of free time on your hands after speaking the truth or your truth. Yeah.
But again, the truth doesn't get you but so far in this industry. Sometimes you gotta go along, get along.
Trust me.
Out the wave.
Trust me when I tell you that. I agree.
Yes. Anyway. So again. Although what Brent Covey said is true, and I agree with him, he can't be the one to say that. As an aside, Nick Sirianni has a lot of work to do. And when you think about the moves the Eagles have made this offseason with the coaching changes and bringing in Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, forcing Nick Sirianni to fire his guys, all that kind of stuff, it just speaks to how much faith or lack thereof they have in Nick Sirianni.
Correct.
But I'm really curious to hear you deep dive into this thing. I want to know truly, how are you unpacking this? Because again, it's not anything we didn't already know, but at the same time, when you hear it solidify from a guy that's in the building, I want to hear how you peel the layers back.
I'm going to work my way up. All right. So first of all, I'm going to put this on the front office and Nick Sirianni for thinking that these two guys were the proper hires as coordinators. They're not the chief culprits. Sirianni is. I'm going to get to him.
Right.
But first of all, the fact that you thought Sean Desai coming in from the outside when you had a candidate in-house like Denard Wilson. And again, I don't know 100% that it all would have worked out with Denard Wilson, but I know Desai wasn't the guy. And you also thought it was a good idea to have Matt Patricia here. The thing with when you made the move to Matt Patricia, which was sheer desperation, you did it with the idea that he was going to tweak. And it sounds to me like he wasn't tweaking, like he was making wholesale changes. And those guys were like, we're doing this week 14. And there's different calls and different alignments. It was sheer stupidity. You should have wrote it out with Desai. I think Desai was a mistake, but I think it would have been less damage with Desai.
The courage of your convictions.
Right. So I'll start there. Then I'll go to the other side. Clearly, this thing was beyond predictable offensively. You couldn't handle a blitz. You didn't do anything that didn't throw outside the hashes deep. You did so little with so much. You had Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown, and a really good offensive line and a 1,000-yard running back, and the offense looks stale? What the hell is that? So then let's go to the third and biggest culprit here, the head coach. The head coach was an offensive guy who was hired for his offensive prowess. He was brought here from the Colts because he was thought to be in the vein of Sean McVay and all these guys, okay? McDaniel, whatever. And he's a guy who can't step away and look at it and sit there and see what's going on in game with Brian Johnson and have conversations with him. We got to change this. Or he's so bad at planning this up that this thing looks predictable every single week. And that's just the offensive nitty gritty. Let's take it a step further back. You're the head coach, man. Britton Covey, who's a second-year punt returner, can see these things, can see what's going on, can see communication breakdowns between the coaches and the players, can see players pointing fingers, and you did nothing to stop it, or whatever you did to try to stop it was ineffective. So it's the ultimate indictment of Nick Sirianni, but there's a mess all over the place. I saw a team last year that absolutely quit. Like, to me, I've said this before, there's no disgrace in losing to the 49ers. There's no disgrace in going down to Dallas and losing after you beat Dallas here. Understandable. I hated the way they got killed in both games, but understandable.
But it happens.
But when you started to really see it was the Seahawks game. You let a backup quarterback go 92 yards on you, and the defensive calls to have Bradbury singled up against Smith-Njigba, who was a really good rookie receiver. The fact that you had Bradbury, who we knew at that point couldn't cover anybody in single coverage, was terrible. The fact that Jalen and AJ decide they're going to ad lib because what we're getting called in is such garbage. We're going to ad lib here and take ourselves out of field goal range to try and tie it. That to me was the point of, oh my God. And then after that, it turned into Giants game that you escaped on Christmas that you probably had no business winning, but you won. And then we were kind of fooled a little bit. And then it was the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon in the second half, putting on a masterclass of out coaching you when you had no answers at all. You lose that game when you still went into that game with a chance at the number 1 seed. Okay, even as bad as that was, then the next week you top it by losing to a Giants team that is hot garbage, that just absolutely sucked. And then you still have a break because you started off so well that you're in the playoffs, and you show up to that Tampa game, or don't show up, however you want to look at it. I don't think they even showed up. But you arrived at that game with a chance to at least stabilize and show that you have some heart, and you just laid down in that game. So to me, this obviously it's Howie, Jeffrey, you're not excluded here. This is on you too. But Nick Sirianni looks awful when it comes to this, and he's back. He's back. So it should scare you, man.
Rob, I love when you get like this. I absolutely love this version of you.
How many veins? Was I veining pretty badly in the neck?
Typically, they say Fridays is when people start to mail it in. No, not us. Not us. This is why I love you, Ari. No, you laid it out completely perfectly. Like, it's a trickle down effect. And you look at Nick Sirianni and you say to yourself, how can this man still be in the building when you, a guy that's not even in the building, were able to ring off so many indictments? Everything that you indicated to me signified a lack of respect for the authority, meaning that the authority didn't demand the respect, or didn't command the respect, or didn't deserve the respect,
or couldn't figure out how to get,
or couldn't figure it out. Players are smart.
Yes,
players are smart. And look,
players sniffed it out immediately, Tony.
Right,
immediately.
Look. At the end of the day, players have to produce, right? That's the fact of the matter. But I kind of look at football a little differently, right? I look at football as, okay, yes, the players go out there, they play, they have to execute. But at the same time, they're being told where to be and what to do. And 9 times out of 10, they're told where the ball is supposed to be and all, especially on defense. Yeah. Everyone has markers. Everyone is supposed to be in specific places on the field, right? That's why guys run specific routes. That's why there's alignments and all that kind. Guys are supposed to be in particular places, right? And clearly, when it came to whatever Nick Sirianni was trying to feed this team, it wasn't resonating. Nobody knew where they were supposed to be. No one was able to execute his game plan, his vision. Again, there's no shame in losing to the Niners. No shame in losing to the Cowboys. Was it upsetting? Did it hurt? Was it a gut punch? Absolutely. Was it a crude reminder that, hey, maybe we're further away than we think? Sure. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, good teams lose to good teams all the time. We saw the Detroit Lions got blown out by the Ravens. Remember that?
Oh yeah. And
the Detroit Lions ended up in the NFC Championship. So what happens? Good teams lose to good teams all the time. No big deal. The Chiefs, I'm sorry, not the Chiefs. The Niners got blown out by the Ravens.
That's right.
Niners are in the Super Bowl. Where are the Ravens? At home. So it happens. But like you said, when we saw that Seahawks game, when we saw that Cardinals game, those Giants games, we said to ourselves, "Oh no, this team is shot."
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like they were shot by a ghost sniper from the stands. Like it was almost like they had no idea what happened.
Yeah,
like I said, they were in the 10 count for the rest of that season, and they were finally put out of their misery in that Buccaneers game. This is nothing that we didn't already know, but at the same time, it just reaffirms where we are with this team right now.
Yeah,
and we're going to talk later on in the show about what they can do to get this thing back on track, right? Because the reality is they have a 4-year window. They have about a 4-year window to get this thing right with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is that contract is starting this year. So in my humble opinion, I think every move they make needs to circle back to Jalen Hurts, because as much as we love the kid, we have no idea if he's going to be here beyond the contract. That's right. One thing we can't speak for that. One thing we do know is he's on contract. He's paid. He's locked in. Now you have to maximize this window. I'm not in the business of trying to wait 3 or 4 years for a guy to get right. I need guys that can help me win within this 4-year window. It's just that simple, Rob. And as of right now, I'm looking at Nick Sirianni, and I'm looking at this new dynamic with the coaching staff that's been built around him. I have a hard time seeing how this can be sustainable with him still being in the building. I don't know how impactful he can be or will be. This has an opportunity to either go really well or really, really, really bad.
Yeah, and fast, bad, fast potentially. But so let me give you Lane Johnson too. So you got a guy who, however you view Britton Covey, and I give the guy props. He's going to carve out a nice career for himself, whatever. But we know he's not as consequential in the big picture as some other guys are. Lane Johnson is, okay. Mm-hmm. Lane Johnson is. So Lane Johnson was on with Dan Patrick yesterday. He's at the Super Bowl doing the rounds, all that kind of, and he's doing a lot of great stuff for mental health, by the way. Incredible. Props to Lane. But he talked about specifically after the 49ers game, and he said his term, not mine, they dismantled us. Okay. The 49ers. And he said the rest of the way teams were on to us. Teams had a game plan for us. Now, he's probably talking about both sides of the ball, but I'm sure he's being more specific to his side of the ball, the offense.
Right.
So, and Nick Bosa said the same thing. He said we had the blueprint for Jalen in that offense. Nick Bosa said that too, for at the time, mind you. So what I'm saying is, when you get lit up like that, like they did against the Niners and the Cowboys the next week,
you got to go to the drawing board.
There's got to be like a come to Jesus moment where we say, you know what? Hey, this isn't working. It might have worked last year. It might have worked earlier in the year, whatever. It's not working now. We have to change things up. And I get a sense, and this is not us speculating this is coming from Lane Johnson, that they just kept, hey, we'll be fine, or we're too talented, or we have this, we have that, and everything's going to be good. And it didn't work the rest of the year.
They kept hammering a nail, Rob, that was already gone. The nail is in, it's gone.
They're turning a screw, it's stripped.
Right. And guess what? This is what signifies the limitations of Nick Sirianni as a head coach, especially on offense. Look, defense, I feel like defense personnel was the real issue on that side. I will definitely say personnel on the defense side, that was the main issue, right? I don't know if anybody could have saved that defense. But on the offensive side, when you have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, that offensive line, DeAndre Swift, that running back, I'm not saying he's a top 5 running back, but you have arguably a top 12, top 15 running back in the NFL. You should be able to make some waves on offense. You should have no problem putting up 30 points a game. But on the back end of the season, 19 points here, 16 points here, 13 points there. It was a hot freaking mess. So again, that's a large indictment on Nick Sirianni. That is what separates the great head coaches from the worst ones. The ones that go through adversity, when when their best trick gets figured out, and you know what they do? They come back with a different trick. They go back to the drawing board and they start reinventing and creating plays on the fly. In those in those meeting rooms. What was he doing this whole time?
That's what I can't figure out.
That's my multi-billion-dollar question. What was he doing for 7 weeks?
That's the
because they looked exactly. Rob, real quick.
Yeah,
we can make a real argument that throughout that 8-game stretch where they went 1-7,
right?
Each game started out in Groundhog Day. Watching those games throughout those weeks, what was Nick Sirianni and that coaching staff doing in term, from a schematical standpoint. Because again, when they say figured out, they don't mean we figured out how to stop AJ Brown. You can't stop AJ Brown. They don't mean we figured out Devontae Smith's, his business. They're not talking about that. They're talking about whatever these coaches have these players doing. We know where they're going to be, and we're going to beat them to their spot.
Right.
Simple as that. And guess what? Again, Nick Sirianni, what were you doing for the past 8 weeks?
Yeah. It's always a fun exercise to do this when it comes to like history, or we'd like to do it with sports naturally. But like, if I could do the truth serum thing and sit down, like I would sit Nick, Brian Johnson, Jalen, probably Lane, because I know I get a lot of truth out of Lane, and a couple other guys. And I would just sit down and I would drill down on them. All right, guys, talk to me about after the Niners game or Cowboys game. What happened? What were the adjustments that were made? The lack thereof. Why weren't things dramatically changed? Why were teams, easily able to figure you out? What the hell happened? And all we hear about, Tone, is coaches are there 24/7. They're up at 3:00 in the morning, and these guys live in the office and blah blah blah. And it's unhealthy because they're putting in so much work. Was there a lot of work being put in? And if there was, the old adage, right? Work smarter rather than work harder. Like, what happened? How does a team that went to a Super Bowl, was it within 3 points of the Super Bowl, started up 10-1, become the easiest team to game plan?
You want to know what happened, Rob? And, we say this all the time in different contexts. Nick Sirianni shot his load.
Yeah.
He shot his load. He maxed out. Because if they truly had faith, in my humble opinion, if they truly had faith in Nick Sirianni's football acumen and his football decision-making, they wouldn't have made the moves they made in the offseason, bringing in Kellen Moore, bringing in Vic Fangio, bringing in Doug Nussmeier, right? They wouldn't have made those moves if they had the utmost faith in Nick Sirianni to pull himself out of this hole. What they did instead was they told Nick, we don't trust you, so we're gonna hamstring you. We're going to make you fire the people that was in this building the year before, and they were only here for a year. Let's put it that way. Well, in their current roles for a year, we're going to make you fire them, and we're going to bring in the people because we don't trust you, to put the right people in position. That's essentially what. See, don't listen to what they say. Pay attention to what they do, and based off of all their actions, all their moves, it indicates a clear disconnect in terms of trust between Nick Sirianni, the players, and the front office. It's very clear. It's very obvious. They did not trust Nick Sirianni to pull himself out of this hole, which in turn tells me, or in turn, it makes me feel like, why keep him in the building in the first place? Your moves indicate a lack of trust in him. If you don't trust someone, why keep them around you?
And that begs the question, did he simply survive because you didn't want, I was thinking about this today. So since Andy Reid left in 2013, if you had moved, you have gone through Chip, Doug, and now Nick, right? Did this come down to they didn't want to be on their fourth coach?
Yes.
Since Andy Reid left?
Yes.
Right. And if that's why you're making that decision, it's the wrong reason to make that decision.
They care too much about how people view them.
The perception.
They care too much about the perception, in my humble opinion. This is when PR fails you. This is PR people making football decisions. This is people in suits making football decisions. Nick Sirianni does not deserve to be here. He maxed out. He had 8 weeks to come up with something a little different than what he was already doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying completely turn the offense on its head, but okay, whatever people have caught on to, tweak it. People notice you're zigging. Okay, maybe it's time for you to zag. This is what I think about the Kansas City Chiefs all season, right? I mean, all season, how they had their own turbulence, right? I think about the Rams. They went through turbulence, right? They had injuries too, but bottom line is it was up and down for the Rams, up and down for the Chiefs, right? And obviously the Chiefs are much better than the Rams, but I want you guys to follow me here. I'm talking about offensive minds. There was a point in time when the Rams, we weren't sure if they were going to make the playoffs or not, but Sean McVay, although he was dealing with injuries, although his team wasn't as talented as the most, he continued to try to throw in wrinkles. He continued to try things to keep this offense either ahead of the curve, did the best to maximize his personnel. Yeah. Did whatever he could, and they found their way into the playoffs. The Chiefs, they had their ups and downs. Guys wasn't catching the ball. Guys wasn't being where they were supposed to be. You name it. Their defense was their calling card. Patrick Mahomes, didn't have his best season.
Kelce wasn't himself early.
Kelce wasn't himself, but they still kept hammering it, and they still kept trying to, okay, what can we do? Okay, who are we?
Yeah.
What are our limitations? They started to learn themselves. I look at Nick Sirianni, and I say, and I look at him as a guy this season who did not look in the mirror not one time. Yeah. Did not bother to learn himself and say, okay, we've hit a wall here. Okay, it's time for me to break down another wall, right? It's time for me to get the sledgehammer and break down another wall and figure out something else that we can do to keep this thing going, because we're too talented for us to be this limited. And that's the biggest thing. They were too talented to be that limited on offense. Again, defense, we know what those issues were. Personnel, we get that. But on offense in particular, they were too talented to be that inept, to be that hamstrung on offense. You can't add it up. It doesn't make sense. How were the Rams more effective on offense and you're more talented than them on offense? How?
Coaching.
It doesn't add up to me. I saw teams that were worse, or let me not say worse. I saw teams that lacked the personnel the Eagles had, and they were more effective. I don't understand that. Devontae Smith doesn't strike me as a guy that that gets lazy in the season. No. AJ Brown doesn't strike me as a guy that's lazy.
Jalen
Hurts doesn't strike me as a guy that's lazy.
Yeah,
this offensive line all of a sudden didn't forget how to do their jobs.
No.
So again, I'm looking at this coaches. I'm looking at Nick Sirianni, and I'm saying, what do you bring to the table, my friend, besides the paper cups and the napkins? What do you bring to the table? That's the worst thing about a cookout, right? You stay away from the people that always say, "Well, I'll bring the cups." Really? You're bringing the cups? I could bring my own cups. Bring something of real sustenance.
Some pizza, bring some wings,
bring
something
pie.
to drink.
You know what I'm saying? Bring some beverages. Bring a case of water. Just bring something that can sustain it. Don't bring no damn cups and plates. And that was Nick Sirianni at the cookout, bringing napkins and shit. Come on, man. Got to be better than that.
I got you, man. I got you. I those two, when I heard those two sound bites, man, I was like, oh boy. And that could, because it's not just coming from some guy who's been here for a minute like Britton Covey. It's coming from a future Hall of Famer in Lane Johnson. So, all right, let's get a timeout. We'll continue the Eagles momentum. I did want to throw this out there. Brandon Marsh had to have his knee scoped. Philly's outfielder. He's out 3 to 4 weeks with a left knee debridement. So that's a little bit of a blow, Tone, because they think he'll be ready for opening day, but they're already thin in the outfield depth-wise. So we'll get into that with Jim Salisbury, Derek Bodner coming up at 12 o'clock, but we'll keep the Eagles momentum going. I want to dive a little bit more into this window with Hurts. And then I got 3 critical questions that I'm going to bounce off of you, Eagles-wise. All right, so we'll do all that. When we come back, don't go anywhere. He's Tone. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take. Bravo Pizza of Havertown. Yes, thrilled that they are a part of the show. Been going there since I was a little kid. They're family-owned since 1985. You got Alex and the crew in there each and every day, putting out the absolute best product that you could possibly have. 20 different styles of pizza daily. They have slices to go. They have specialized pizza however you want it. They'll make it. But Bravo Pizza of Havertown doesn't just do pizza. They do fresh pasta, sandwiches, wraps, wings, salads. And they're also committed to the community. They have fundraisers all the time where they raise money for charities, for schools, for Little League, someone who's in need, whatever the case may be. The proceeds go to those organizations. You can follow them at the Bravo Pizza of on Instagram and Facebook for daily specials and promotions. They're located at 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center, Havertown, Pennsylvania. 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center, Havertown, PA. Give them a call, 610-446-3810, 610-446-3810. Bravo Pizza of Havertown.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.